Hello, everybody, and welcome to our release day live stream for Portal. We are the story mode team. I'm Michael Tucker, joined today by Brian Bittner.
Hello, hello. Shell says hi.
Shell says hi. Alex Calleros.
Hi.
And Wyatt Strain.
Hi.
So we are doing our release day live stream. This is the third one that we've done now, and the last two have been really fun. So we're going to keep it up. I am going to be, so Wyatt and I are going to try to play Portal 2 co-op.
So excited.
That could be fun. We did a quick test run last night, and it hilarity ensued. So hopefully that will be the case today as well. But yeah, so we want to talk about Portal more. If you guys have seen the video, hopefully you have. If you haven't, go watch the video that we just released on the psychology of loss aversion and Portal. So we want to talk more about loss aversion. I want to talk about my first experience playing Portal. And I want to hear from you guys. So more about that in a second. And then also if you guys have, Wyatt's attacking me. If you guys have questions.
Here we go.
Yeah, send the questions over in the chat. And we love to answer questions and hear from you and hear any of your thoughts on anything that we're talking about. So that is my opener that I have here. And so a question I have for all of us and for anybody watching is, what was your first experience with Portal? Like, what did you expect before playing it, and what was it like playing it for the first time? Because I don't know about you guys, but I was kind of following the making of it, or just like they announced that there had been, that Valve had acquired this game that had been created by like a grad student or some people in college, and they were going to use it as like a puzzle game. And so they released the orange box, and I was mostly buying the orange box because it had Half-Life 2 episode 2 on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh, Portal, that's that thing I heard about, that they like made a little puzzle game. And then I started playing it, and then it was absolutely insane, and it just goes from there. So it was one of the best just game experiences ever for me. So yeah, I'm curious for you guys, story mode team, what was your first experience with Portal like?
I wasn't following it the way you were, so I think I kind of came to it late in the game, after it was already a thing, and I knew it was good, but I did not expect the GLaDOS of it all. I think I actually just loved the puzzle aspects of it. I mean, I can get frustrated with puzzle games easily. I'm more of a story game guy, and so if a puzzle game really frustrates me, I can just kind of get pissed. But the type of puzzle that Portal is so satisfying and so cool and so much physics and fun to explore. So I already liked it for that reason, but I really fell in love when I realized it had that Half-Life Valve thing going on with GLaDOS, and I became obsessed with it. I thought it was like the best puzzle game ever.
I can't even remember how I first discovered it. I remember there was a thing about the orange box where it was like that was the only way you could play it on a console, the first game. So I might have even played 2 first because I couldn't get my hands on it or something. I can't quite remember, but it was just one of those things that I sort of discovered while I was discovering like the current generation of like new video games and stuff around that age, around like the age of like I was discovering Fallout 3 and that kind of stuff. And yeah, just loved it right away. And we were just talking beforehand. I was like, why is this so replayable? It's a puzzle game. So theoretically, once you've played it once, you're like, I'm done. But I'll play it every couple of years. And fortunately, I don't remember like exactly how to solve every puzzle. So that makes it replayable too. But also just going through it and going through the story and the world, and whether it's GLaDOS in the first game or GLaDOS and Stephen Merchant and J.K. Simmons in the second game, it's just so much fun to just go through it every couple of years.
Yeah, I think we should have started on an easier level. I'm already stressed out.
Yeah, I'm like watching this. This is intense. Yeah.
This is the first level, I think.
It said 6 on it.
I moved it back to the 1.
Oh, really? That was the first level?
Is this too hard for you, Michael?
This is not bode well.
Yeah, well, and Portal 2, I mean, this was a whole, first of all, the single player game, I realized preparing for this live stream, I actually haven't played through because I got so caught up in the co-op game with different friends and my partner, and then life happened, so I guess I never finished the single player game. But the places they take the world and the characters, and it's just so above and beyond. I think that's what's so special about these games, is they don't need to be so amazing and so epic and so above and beyond what they are. And then the implementation of the co-op was so well done. Like, this could have also been, half-assed or poorly done, but I remember this. All the tools you wanted for co-op were built into the co-op. The way you can signal to each other, the goofy stuff where you can dance or hit each other. I just, once again, it's like, this is what you want from any game, which is, I have expectations, they're met, and so much more I never even expected or knew I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Why'd I've now left you? But that's what I'm saying. You should have come through.
All you have to do is shoot your orange one.
Yeah, I want to replay both. I want to replay both these games so badly.
Yeah.
Clever. And well, so to talk a little bit about like this video also. So it came from listening to a podcast that, Brian, you've been listening to for a long time that you recommended. So do you want to talk a little bit about loss aversion and all the things that kind of were brought up on the podcast, and what the podcast is for people that aren't familiar with it?
Sure. Yeah. The podcast is called The Psychology of Video Games with Dr. Jamie Madigan, and he is I think like a doctorate of psychology, and he gets a lot of guests on every month. Is a different guest who is someone who is like an expert at the intersection of psychology and video games. And usually they're not game designers. They're actually sort of people in academia who study sort of gaming and how our brains work and why they react certain ways to things. So anything from like gaming therapy, where like there's one woman who runs a D&D therapy group, basically, where it's like she helps kids and stuff through issues they have by playing D&D campaigns and helping them sort of work through some of their issues, things like that. He had on Jeff Engelstein to talk about Portal and loss aversion, and basically Jeff goes really deep into this is amazing. Jeff goes really deep into the idea of the endowment effect, making you connect to something, but then also loss aversion, making you feel anxious or sad when you have to not have something anymore. I think that resonated with me a lot, because the reason I wanted to put in our video the like having a bunch of money in a video game, but then you have to spend some. Like that, whenever I play like a Skyrim or a Fallout or something, I just want to collect everything in the world that's like worth anything. And then suddenly it's like, you found this amazing weapon, or like this thing is worth a lot of money now, but you have to drop something because you're over encumbered. And I'm like,
right.
I don't want to drop this stupid, 10 coin fork because I might get 10 coins for it. I don't want to just drop it in the middle. And it's the stupidest thing ever. I'm like, I have like 5,000 coins and I don't want to drop something that I could get like 10 coins at the shop for or something. But it is that feeling of loss aversion. Like, no, this is mine now. I don't want to just drop it in the world. But if I had just like never picked it up in the first place, I wouldn't have cared. But it's like, now that it's mine, so it's the same concept as like the companion cube, where now that I have taken it, I've added it to my inventory. Now it's mine. Now I don't feel like I want to leave it behind because it's mine, and it's just the stupid way that we are. So then, of course, he talked. We got him to talk to us about how the first Portal uses those psychological techniques to create empathy and connection with the companion cube, and then to drive you crazy when you have to incinerate it.
There's an interesting aspect of loss aversion too that reminds me of the negativity bias, where he talked about Mario Kart, or we talked about Mario Kart, where if you're getting first place, it feels really exciting and good, but it somehow feels even worse to fall behind, to lose first place.
Right.
Like the amount of good you feel winning is not as much bad as you feel losing.
Yeah, in we have the Jeff's full interview on our Patreon, and he goes into a game he designed called, I think, Pit Crew, where there was like a card where it's basically like you're going around a racetrack, and there was a card that made you go back a step. And everyone got so frustrated when that card would come up and they just hated it and da-da-da. And then all he did was change the card to everybody else goes up a step, which is the exact same thing.
Right.
But now you're not feeling loss of something that you yourself have earned, even if the outcome is exactly the same, you know. And he just thought it was fascinating that like then nobody minded when that card came up anymore. And it's just like, that's so interesting how stupid we are.
Yeah. Humans are incredibly irrational. And
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I liked just the simple like monetary ones that he would suggest also of like, you know, if you give people two options, you know, you have an 80% chance of winning $4,000 and a 20% chance of winning nothing.
Right.
Versus a 100% chance of getting $3,000. Like, even though the math supports you should take the 80% chance, like humans don't do that because the fear of not getting anything at all is scarier.
Yeah, no, I mean, if it's 4,000 or 3,000, I'll take the 3,000 every time. But if it's 80% of winning 1,500 or 100% of winning 3,000, you know, then it starts to get like, I don't know, maybe I might
different
take that
equations.
risk. Yeah.
Right. Which is, just, I want like, we should get like biological, like evolutionary biologist on here to talk about like why, like where these things come from and why they are tuned to like the degree that they are of like, at some point this equation does make more sense where you'd like risk, like why you're willing to risk certain numbers of things versus other things is always just really fascinating.
Yeah. If you see a story mode video come up where the title is "Why Are We Idiots?" then you'll understand it.
It is interesting how different games deal with it differently too. Like some of the craziest loss experiences in games that I've had are like in like the MMO games or like the online ones where you have like full loot drop whenever you die. So it's like everything on your character is dropped and it's like, no. It's the most dramatic thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah, Fallout 76 does that, and then you have to then you have like a paper bag left behind that somebody else can take, you know. So you're like spawn, and then you're running to that spot, hoping that like you can get to your loot before someone else does.
And Minecraft, I feel like that's why lava is terrifying in Minecraft. Is because like you could fall in, and then everything you have, like whatever your diamond pickaxe is, like destroyed for forever.
Right. Gamma Game says the Into the Breach dev had a similar story. He added where the towns would randomly defend and prevent damage, and players loved it because it was a random reward.
Right.
It's kind of like similar to the kind of everybody moves forward story that Brian was saying. Yeah.
And then Larry says, I would argue Mario games have horrible loss aversion because it never feels tough to lose anything because you rarely lose anything in those games. Maybe that's why they're great comfort games. But loss can be things like inventory or a companion, but it can also be progress. So most games that came out in that early generation, and maybe current Mario is not a great example of this, but if you look at like original Nintendo games, you know, Mario 1, 2, 3 and stuff like that, like you turn the game off, you got to start all over again, you know, and if you run out of lives, you got to start at the beginning of the world again and that kind of thing. So, I mean, I think that's also a different kind of loss aversion. We were talking off mic about Fallout 4 survival mode, where you can only save when you sleep in a bed, but also the more enemies you kill, you gain adrenaline, which makes your damage output better. And when you sleep, you lose your adrenaline. So it's always this like, first of all, I've been like out in the world for an hour and I haven't saved. So like, good God, I have to find a bed. But also now I'm doing 30% more damage, you know, across all my weapons and stuff. So maybe I want to try to take out this enemy before I find a bed, you know, and that kind of thing. So that's all loss aversion too. It's just, I don't want to lose the adrenaline, or I don't want to lose the progress if I die. You know, it's just constantly weighing those things back and forth.
Yeah, it's interesting to realize how much. So we play games to almost trigger these evolutionary stress signals. like we want the experience of actually feeling legitimately stressed about losing something in our comfortable lives. I think it's just a fascinating, the same way we want to drop on the Tower of Terror at Disneyland, which theoretically, no being should want to feel the sensation of plummeting to their death. But there's some part of us that feels like we need to activate those that brain chemistry once in a while. It kind of helps us feel alive. So it's interesting, like in games, like some people hate horror games or hate scary games, but I loved in Last of Us Part 2 when I just felt my entire body was engaged in this experience. My chemistry was in a survival mode during certain moments, and that was just it's neat to activate that stuff, because we do live, us in the Western world, those very comfortable lives where we maybe have a low level stress, and that's not really fun. It's just like low level anxiety is not really the same as like pointed game adventure anxiety. Those are all my thoughts on why we like these feelings.
This is breaking my brain.
It resets my portal whenever I run the block over it.
Well, make it go all the way down
so-
with it again, so you can elevator me up to this thingy.
Oh, whoops. I'm like trying to think, how can I portal you above it?
So Michael, we played through a lot of. Did we finish the co-op?
We did.
Or
Ultimately,
we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we played through the entire co-op. How was that experience for you? Playing with me.
It was exciting. I feel like we are different amounts of gamer, and
Correct.
just exploded. Yeah, but I mean, I think it's fun. I think that's why Portal is a cool game, is because it's accessible to lots of different people, and it does require, some coordination, but the mechanics as far as like driving your people around aren't too crazy.
Right.
So yeah,
You just have to be smart.
right.
So.
That's
Which maybe I wasn't all the time.
no, I feel like it was. I mean, I think that's like the fun of the puzzle, is like trying to
Solve it
Right.
together.
I feel like I was more stressed watching you play Mirror's Edge, because I think
I remember you and Steven were mad at me while I was playing it, because I was just kind of like freewheeling. I was just like, this is like a crazy cinematic experience. I'm just gonna go with it. I don't care if I die, really. But there was like a more professional gamer part of you that I think it was like watching, I don't know, somebody just be really cavalier with a very serious thing.
yeah, or just, I mean, in college I was very into like Halo and being like really good at games, and so it was stressful to sometimes watch people that didn't practice all day.
Yeah, watch somebody who was very sloppy.
Right.
I didn't care about precision.
Right.
That was just being whatever.
Yeah, so it's stressful but fun. We're still friends.
I was in high school. I did play the first Halo game multiplayer a lot. That was the one time I went deep into a game, because we had the local LAN parties, where it's people would bring over their Xboxes. We'd have multiple TVs in different rooms of the house with long Ethernet cables.
Nice.
And we played, the Blood Gulch? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, that was one
I think
of
you
them.
just Googled a random word generator.
I think it was called Blood Gulch. But it was the level that you just played over and over and over and over again. So that was one game that I think I went into the level that you would expect, Michael, of a real gamer.
Right. Really quick, before we get too far away from Lost Aversion, the other one that I wanted to mention that blew my mind, that that Jeff mentions in his book and in the podcast, I'm coming.
Take your time.
That I don't think we've talked about yet, but that in D&D originally there was you lose levels,
XP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is stressing me out. Sorry.
Yeah, the timing of this is crazy.
Yeah. How am I going to get over there? Okay, fine. But yeah, as someone that plays D&D, like it's such a big deal when you finally level up your character, or like in any like RPG game, like nowadays, like if you could imagine like them taking away a level, or like you losing like key abilities,
Hmm.
like how painful and stressful that would be.
Hmm.
Um,
Has any RPG game dared to do that? Like take away experience, take away a level?
I mean, I think the point was that like that the first thing D&D discovered was people hate that. You know,
Right.
like there's difference
Nobody
between
wants it.
right. And I think it's an interesting thing that I find playing board games with a friend of mine where he loves the same games I do, but there are certain things that make him a little more angry than me when a game is like there's some card that's like just take one of your other players, money from the other player or something like that. And it's that sort of feeling of like, but I earned this. Like I just spent, like the last turn doing this thing, and now this card, and that's fine. Plenty of games have that stuff, but every once in a while, you're just like, that's too much, or that's crossing the line. Um, Another thing I thought of is the Scarface game that came out on the Wii. It was like a Scarface GTA, GTA with the Scarface skin, basically. But it's sort of set in alternate, like as if Tony survived the big shootout at the end of the first movie. So you start with all these weapons and reputation and XP and everything, and then you have this big shootout, and then basically you're like left for dead, but you don't actually die. And then this meter comes up at the end of the level, and you see all of your stuff go down, like you lose all of your money and all of your like everything, all the way down to zero. And I just thought, what a cool way to sort of put you in kind of the character's headspace too. If it's not just you're
Right.
starting a game with nothing, it's you're starting a game with everything, and then within the first 10-20 minutes you lose everything, and then you have to spend the game getting back up to where you were, which I just thought was a really cool way of implementing something like that.
There's definitely like a good and bad way to like get that stuff. Like I can't remember exactly what it's called, but there's a famous example of like at the end of a cave, there's two treasure chests. One of them will like kill your whole party, and the other one is like a huge, like
that sounds awful.
yeah, one of them's like a huge thing of gold. It's just like there's no like game design there, you know. It's like there's not a lot of fun interaction with that. So
Right.
Sounds like Vince is saying that Diablo might still do like level drain kind of things, which is interesting.
oh
That
man,
makes sense because it's like less of an RPG. It's sort of like
Right.
a game that's not sort of focused as much on being an RPG.
the worst level drain was EverQuest, which is an MMO, and like you would basically whenever you die, you would lose hours of progress. So, like I remember one
God.
night being like, oh, I'm really gonna make a lot of progress tonight, and then hours later, I was like, I'm exactly back where I started. It's
Once
brutal.
again, we pay for these experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
we pay for deep frustration.
One thing I think is cool is I was thinking about board games where a lot of games have like a track around the edge of the board where it's like the victory points or whatever, and at the end of the game, whoever has the most is the winner. But a couple games let you like spend victory points to like do something in the game. So, which is such an interesting thing. Like, I'm going to make myself farther away from first place, but in order to hopefully get something that is going to make me, get that back plus more over the course of, the next hour or something. And I always thought that was an interesting, it can be frustrating, but it was an interesting way of, again, sort of being like, you can stay here on the track, you can stay in first place, or you can move to second place, but by doing that you're going to gain something that is hopefully going to like help you a lot and that kind of thing. So it's a similar sort of thing where it's just this constant trade-off between what do I want, what am I willing to lose in order to progress.
Yeah, I think a Ticket to Ride Europe is an interesting example of that, where you have train stations that you can save, and they count as a certain number of victory points at the end of the game. But if you find yourself in a bind, you might want to spend them to actually like be able to build more tracks or to connect your tracks in different parts of the board. So
Right.
I think that's a really clever tool of like, it's like a gamble you're taking. Am I going to lose this now to hopefully get more later? I was thinking, when we first talked about this video, one of the most acute, I mean, it was not even like that serious a feeling of loss aversion because it's like a small art game. but I kept trying to put it in the video, but nobody knew what it was about. But playing the game Journey, which is just like a hour and a half, 2-hour experience. Beautiful game, one of my favorite games. Began as a PlayStation exclusive, and you basically have this very simple mechanic of this tassel coming off the back of your little player, which can be kind of powered by things in the environment, and it gives you essentially, as long as your tassel grows, is like the amount of time you can be flying in the air, kind of flapping your robe and flying. And you find little objects that grow your tassel bit by bit throughout the game, and then you come to a level where there are these like robot dragon things, and essentially if they spot you and lunge at you, they break off your entire tassel. So you're back to square one immediately as far as like the amount of flying you can do. And I always thought that was a really good use of loss aversion, because it makes the consequences of even just being seen by the dragon feel just like, oh, like I just lost all progress I had in being able to fly around. And now I'm back to square one. I can fly for a second and I drop back down. So that, and I think that game rewards you at the end. There's this kind of finale where you're given infinite tassel, and because you've experienced like the loss of it, and you know, I think even if you like hold on to it for a lot of the game, by the final kind of Dark Night of the Soul levels, like you guarantee lose it, and the kind of denouement, like ecstatic finale, it's like an infinitely long and like always powered tassel. So it's just interesting how the game makes you really appreciate that, and you're like, this is awesome, I can just keep flying. And none of those things were things that I cared about until the game took them away and made it precious.
It's kind of the common game thing is like the BFG at the end. You have like this
Right.
great power.
Right. It's like the opposite. It's the thing where what was I playing? Oh, I was playing XCOM, and I would like, once I thought I got kind of into the game and kind of had a good sense of what was there, then I'm like looking at the research thing, and it's like, now you can research a jetpack. And I'm like, holy crap. And then it's like, now you can research it. And like the game just sort of keeps giving you stuff where by the end, it's like, it's almost impossible to think about a time when you were in the early levels where you were just running around with like a pistol or something. And that's, you know, nothing to do with loss aversion really, except for an example like you were just saying, where it's like, because they've taken it away from you, you appreciate it more. But also there is a sense of the opposite of that, which is just like, once you've earned something in a game and then the game just lets you enjoy it forever, then you're like, thank you. Yes. Now I finally can like do this thing that like it took me so long to get here, but now I can appreciate the hell out of it.
I think.
And go ahead.
No, you first.
I was just gonna, since we're in Valve world, I feel like Half-Life Alyx has some cool moments like that, where like, yeah, just the way they progress and like give you a little bit more, but like put restraints on how you can use those new things. It's a very, I think, cleverly constructed like progression. And then there is a point where it's like, and now go be a god in your like VR world, and it's the most like satisfying thing ever. That's all.
I was gonna say that one of the interesting things about that Jeff had said at the end of our interview was that like the loss aversion thing is kind of just a tool, and it's not like there's not like 100% chance it's going to work on everybody, right? And that's kind of something we've noticed with talking to a lot of these game designers, is that a lot of stuff is figured out through play testing, because some people it's going to hit right and some people it won't, and so they really just kind of try and get it the closest they can, do the best that they can, and go from there. But like, yeah, just knowing what tools you have and being able to call on them when you need to.
You did an excellent job.
And then of course the other one that drives me crazy all the time is the like saving. I'll save, you know, this mega grenade or whatever the hell for the right time, you know, and then I find myself just like surrounded by enemies or some huge boss fight, and I'm like, but I gotta save that for later. I'm like, now is later. Like, use it.
When is later?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of big RPG games like Witcher 3 or Skyrim or any of these, like I get into that a lot where it's I'm gonna save this one-time use consumable for the right moment, and the moment never comes.
Right.
It's just like, just let go, just use it, it's fine.
I feel like the entirety also of Monopoly is like is like the example of like how to not use loss aversion. Like I feel like most of Monopoly you're just losing constantly. Like
I hate
anything that you
Monopoly for that
gain,
reason.
you
Yeah.
eventually just lose completely.
It's such a dispiriting game.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys sound a little bitter.
I have almost like literally lost friendships. I remember when I was at UC Santa Cruz at college, we decided one night to play Monopoly, and it went so poorly that I almost like got in my car and drove home. Like I got like home to my parents. Like I got in my car and started
Wait,
driving.
like to leave college?
Like to leave my off-campus apartment and to just like leave to go home because I just needed to be away from everyone and everything.
just like an incredibly
for
dramatic move.
a very
Yeah.
we also just realized that this video had not been set to public, so new people that are joining, I'm going to do a quick re-intro of what's going on. So yeah, this is our Portal live stream, release day live stream. We're talking about Portal and Portal. We're playing Portal 2. We're talking about loss aversion, the psychology of loss aversion. We haven't talked too much about the endowment effect, but kind of talking more about all of the ideas that we talked about in the video, in the Portal video. And Wyatt and I are trying to make our way through Portal 2 co-op while this is happening.
It's a hard game to multitask.
It is.
Have a conversation and play.
I think we're doing pretty well, though.
I mean, you guys have been making constant, progress. So, good job.
Only died a couple times.
Gamma Games points out roguelikes have, are a great example of loss aversion, and because that's, I've never played a roguelike game except for maybe like adjacent roguelike games like Outer Wilds, but I don't know if that actually counts. But have you guys played? You guys have played Hades, right? Which is
I was obsessed with
definitely
Hades.
definitely a roguelike game, correct?
Yeah, but I feel like what's interesting about Hades, and correct me if I'm wrong because I don't know a ton about roguelikes, but that they're kind of, what does this button do? Sorry. Easily distracted. There is like a preservation built in, so it's not just oh, that's what that button does. Cool, great, got it. You'll be fine, don't worry about it. You'll be fine, don't worry about it. I'm probably gonna kill Wyatt right now. So that like even when you die and you go back to the beginning, it doesn't feel like I'm pressing the wrong one. I'm gonna get it. It doesn't feel like you're losing progress as much. This is an example of why multitasking is not possible.
Another thing human brains are bad at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's an interesting
question is
argument.
about
Go ahead.
roguelikes
Yeah.
and loss aversion.
Yeah, you probably know best to talk about it.
I mean,
Like nothing happened.
they don't. I guess in the sense that they have like permadeath, right? So like when you die, your run is done, and everything that you worked up to that point is gone. But a lot of the more recent ones do have like kind of continued progression. So it's like you do unlock stuff as you go. So even if you run and die, it's not like totally like a complete loss. But yeah, in the old ones, there was basically no saved progress at all. So as much as far as you've gotten would be completely gone when you died.
Yeah, I mean, I think procedural generation is interesting because what Gamma Games is pointing out is because you're never sort of playing the exact same level twice, then you don't quite feel like, oh, I got to do all this over again. So it doesn't quite have the same. But also, the opposite is true, which is because you're not playing the same level over and over again, you don't get better at the specific thing. We've all played that level of Mario or whatever where it's like you die every single time you get to that big jump or whatever, and then you're like and then finally you make it over that jump, but then you die at the next thing, but then next thing you know, 10 minutes later, that jump is nothing to you by now. You can just jump, you still might not be able to make it to the end of the level, but you're like, oh, and there's that jump, and maybe once every 10 times you still fall in or something, but you're like, oh, I got this. So it's like, yeah, it's frustrating to have to do it all over again, but you're getting better and better at it, as opposed to procedurally generated games and that kind of thing, where you are getting better at the skill, but you can't sort of predict what's going to be around the next corner and stuff, which obviously has its own problems.
Why are we able to like do incredibly tedious like learning with games like that, but like we don't want to practice piano? You know?
Right.
It's so frustrating. It's like I'm gonna spend all day like reprogramming my neurons to be able to make this jump in Mario, and then that skill will never be useful again. But I can't make myself like practice this actual skill.
Well, I just want to talk about briefly Gamma Games. Oops, it didn't work. Do it again. Brought up the Into the Breach developer who also made FTL, which is one of my favorite roguelike games, and it was like super stressful because it was so random and you could get so far, but like one bad run, or like you encounter one type of alien that is impervious to all of the upgrades that you've been putting onto your ship so far, and then you're just like completely screwed. And so but like it was tuned just right that made me want to do it again. And so I feel like there's like that happy balance that you're trying to hit, where you just become addicted in a good way.
Well, there's the kind of what's that, like sunk cost, what's that psychological term?
The sunken
cost fallacy.
Yeah. Where it's just like, I've already invested so much time into this freaking thing that like I can't stop now. Like, even though I kind of hate this and I'm tired of it and I don't want to keep doing it, like I've put this much time in, so I can't not do it now. Yeah. It's an interesting sensation in certain types of games.
Well, that reminds me of, I was thinking about poker actually, because I took the Daniel Negreanu's masterclass for poker, and he was talking about that feeling where, you decide to not stay in a hand, yay, because because it's too it's too risky. You're probably not going to catch whatever card you need, and it's just you have to pay too much to stay in the hand. And then you fold, and then the next card comes, and it's the exact card you needed, and you're like, oh man, if I just stayed in, I would have had all this money. He said, but it's better to regret that than it is to regret losing all your money because you made a dumb decision or whatever. So it's that sort of that similar back and forth loss aversion-y kind of thing, where is it better to decide, well, I made the right choice even if I would have actually won, versus I made the wrong choice and now I have no money left and I'm sad. Like at least you didn't lose all of it, so it's that sort of like it's like the 80% 100% thing of what do you stand to win, what do you stand to gain, and what are you willing to risk in order to do it.
I've just been sorry, Brian. I've
Yep.
I've been watching this unfold where Michael like went and dissolved the ball. They just spent so much time trying to get. It's like, Michael, what are you
so
doing?
On theme.
He's standing on the button.
So on theme.
Can you hand it to me from there?
Can I hand it to you? Okay, great. We did it.
I tried to gesture.
No, that's a force field.
I don't have the sound onto the game. Also, I feel like that probably would be giving me helpful cues. We did it.
That was so stressful to watch from Wyatt's perspective.
But yeah, and I think in his book, Jeff talks a decent amount about like Vegas, because Vegas is kind of the ultimate. Right. We've learned all the tricks on how to manipulate people into giving us their money, and like abstraction is one that's kind of an obvious one, but that he talks about is like so we have the endowment effect, where it's like the example in the video that we use is like, if you give someone a mug and now it's like it's your mug, they value it higher than just another random mug that is identical that isn't theirs, right? So just having it makes you add value to it. Abstracting things, so like you go to Vegas and you give them money and then they give you chips so that you don't feel like you're losing your chips or your money anymore. You're just losing these chips. Or, there are lots of video games where you have points and you buy your points with the money. And so there's like
Yeah.
putting layers of abstraction there does kind of the opposite, where it reduces loss aversion because you don't feel the same pain of losing your money, basically.
I've told
Yeah,
this.
like I think it's so interesting when anything makes you convert money into credits or just some other thing besides dollars. It's watch
Right.
out.
This is fine. I know what's happening. I need to hit something. Oh, there's a button over here. Haha. There's a button over here. I don't know what's happening. Did we do it? We have a bunch of balls now.
Nice work.
Sweet. I feel like I'm definitely just like the guinea pig in this relationship. I'm curious for people watching and in chat, if you guys have any stories of like ultimate experiences with loss aversion, of those moments where a game made you lose something or you accidentally lost something and it was devastating.
And those are two different things, which I want to hear about both. Like, think times where you did something that caused you to lose something and it was horrifying, or a time when the game was designed to make you lose it and you never forgot it,
Right. Because it really can be just like a pure storytelling tool as well, just to put you, like you said in that Scarface example, just to put you just in the psychology
Right. And
of the character.
There are plenty of games where it's like, for this level, you lost your lightsaber or your sword or whatever. Like, they take it away from you.
You're breaking out of prison and all of your inventory's been taken from you. It's like the classic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you get it back, but when you get from point A to point B, but how do you get from point A to point B? Do you try to combat? Do you try to stealth?
Really quick, this is a tangent, but I keep getting confused with the roguelike or roguelite. Are they different? Is it the same thing? Do people just say it quickly so we think it's like either word, or what? Like, what is this? The roguelite versus roguelike thing?
I feel
Wyatt?
Like, we talked about this on like the
the
Horizon Zero Dawn live stream.
We already covered this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wasn't given an answer that stuck in my mind, I guess.
That's my fault.
Do better,
So,
Wyatt.
roguelike is based on an old game called Rogue, and the people that are fans of that genre are like very protective of that name. And so when people took elements from that genre and made it more loosey-goosey, they called it roguelite, so as not to confuse it with like the true rogue-like games. People still use it like interchangeably, and it goes back and forth, but
So it's like, don't pretend like this is rogue level.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It's not a true
Not
synonym.
turn-based. It's not, all these things. So,
Picaro24 is pointing out Prince of Persia had, essentially you have to undo your progress throughout the game to save someone, and that I barely remember that game, but I have a visceral memory of like an undoing, which was really striking at the end.
Well, yeah, Prince of Persia is so interesting in terms of something like loss aversion, because it's like in the same way, Inglourious Bastards is a movie where we're like, what if this happened instead? Where in Prince of Persia, it's like, oh, I fell down the hole, but what if I rewind 5 seconds and I didn't fall down the hole? Like, that's such an interesting, like, I want to have that superpower, but then obviously there's only a limited number of times you can do that. And I haven't played all the games, but I played several of them back in the day. So of course, they're talking about the more meta thing here, the more macro of the game, but it's such an interesting like fantasy gaming thing where it's like, what if every time you screwed up you could just say, JK, I didn't actually do that. I'm gonna go back 5 seconds and do this differently, which is so satisfying.
I always like games that like have built in a reason in the universe for why you can reload or why you can respawn.
Right.
It's always satisfying. Just like actually in Portal 2 co-op, you are robots that can just be reassembled every
Right.
time you get vaporized.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed, where you're reliving memories, so
Right.
you just desync,
Yeah.
well, at least not the current Assassin's Creed, where they stopped, I think, trying at all to like have there be any meta game at all. They're just, no, you're like a Viking now.
Oh,
but,
interesting. I haven't played it, so I didn't know
yeah,
that.
I heard it, or even if it's there, it's like so thinly veiled. I think 3 was like super thinly veiled, where they're just like, yeah, look, you sit down at a computer and now you're in the simulation, so go play the simulation now. Where the early games are like very like, oh,
It was about that. Yeah.
right, you are Desmond, you are doing this.
I've never played Final Fantasy VII, but I remember Vince on our team is a huge Final Fantasy VII fan, and I remember there was in one of our first videos about companions. That was like a must include. I think it was Eris from Final Fantasy VII, and it reminds me of my experience with Mass Effect games, and the way I grew so close to certain crew members in the Normandy. It was horrifying that any of them could die in Mass Effect 2. Like that was just like is this allowed? What, Garrus can die? Like,
Right.
Garrus or Tali, like they are people that shouldn't be allowed to die, and yet in the suicide mission you can screw up in such a way that these trilogy wide characters can be killed off. And I remember that was really striking to me, because that just didn't seem like it should be allowed, but it made the ending so powerful.
Yeah, it's been interesting to hear different game designers' philosophy on whether your companions can die, because I think on one hand, some argue if you don't want your companions to die, then every time they do, you just reload your last save and start over again. Like, and it's just frustrating because you're like, well, I'm not gonna do that. So here we go. And you guys chatting to each other now?
I want to
It's a
interrupt
tough
here.
one.
No, it's fine. But and that's true, obviously, and that can be frustrating. And it's like, well, then why bother? But at the same time, there are times where it makes you have to make that choice of, I finally got through this big battle and I'm so satisfied, but oh crap, my companion didn't make it. Do I keep going? That's
right.
Another thing that XCOM does is there's permadeath for your characters if you decide to sort of accept the results of a mission, but then that character you spent 10 hours building up is gone now, and you have to decide whether or not to do that. So I just think there's no right or wrong answer. It's just different games that call for different things. But I definitely know that feeling of oh, my companion died, so there is no option here. I'm gonna go back and reload the save and do it again, and just hope they don't die.
Well, it's interesting because I remember with Mass Effect 2, so I did 2 playthroughs of the game when I first played it, because I was playing through by myself as a bro shepherd, and then my really good friend Addie would come over, and like that was like our hangout activity. We'd like order Thai food and play through as FemShep like together. And I was letting her make the decisions in the game. I was like doing the action, she was doing the actual dialogue choices. But at the end of the game, I was curious to see what happened if we like made different choices during the suicide mission. And so I was like pressuring her to like choose different people than I chose for different like tasks, and they were the wrong people. And so like in her experience of Mass Effect 2 suicide mission, like half of the crew died, and she was so devastated and was like, this is so awful. And I was like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have influenced you, because you might have made better choices. But it was interesting how like the end of Mass Effect 2 was amazing for me. I think I lost a couple crew members that I didn't care about as much, and so it gave me the satisfaction of, oh wow, anybody can die, and yet I'm like happy with my ending. And her experience of Mass Effect 2 was like the most devastating, awful thing, where Garrus died and her favorite characters all died. So that's just a very interesting way that an ending of a game can have a completely different emotional effect on a player when you leave it that open.
Yeah,
you're really leaving it up to chance if a player kind of hates you at the end of that game or loves you as a developer.
I think that's
Yeah.
like one of the big differences between, how certain games do it is like a lot of them is like risk versus reward. It's kind of what's interesting about the Portal example is there's not really a risk. Like you don't realize kind of that you're being manipulated until the end, kind of a thing. But like in other games, you really do. It's like they set this framework where, you can lose all your items or you can lose companions or things like that, and it makes the game more intense, but also more frustrating if things don't go your way. It's like one of the old, like multiplayer games, Ultima Online, like was so brutal in their risk and reward that like they were losing subscribers. Like the people that were losing were just quitting the game. So they tried to like tame it down and make it not as crazy, but then the more hardcore people weren't into it. It was just like a tough balance of like trying to balance out your risk and reward.
Wyatt, I think you can go through. I think we can do it.
Do you have a plan?
Yeah. Just,
Oh, wow,
just,
how'd you get over
just
there?
go through. Just go through. Just don't throw a portal and just bounce through the thing.
Don't. Oh,
Just-
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, we did it.
You did it.
That's the other thing with these kind of games, with Portal games and any great puzzle game, is there's a deep satisfaction when you're frustrated by a puzzle for an extended period of time and you finally figure it out. It's one of the greatest feelings of satisfaction you can ever feel.
Yeah.
Also, just Portal, like
It's just
Yeah.
so good.
just the simple idea of the portal gun is amazing.
It's so, yeah, whoever that grad student was.
It really
good
is, yeah,
job.
so mind bending.
Yeah, I remember my mom visiting once, and I showed it to her, and she just didn't understand. Like I was like, look, if I put a thing here and put a thing here, and then I walked through it, and she's like, I'm like, see, and she's like, I don't know what you're showing. It's just like it's
almost
just
like-
so hard
yeah,
to think.
You have to think in like new dimensions.
Right.
It's not what we do in our everyday lives. It's real physics thinking.
Yeah. Have any of you guys played the Lab, the Valve's VR
Yes,
stuff?
it's so great.
cool. The bow and arrow game in that is like one of my favorite VR things.
Absolutely. Yeah, Michael got, what's it called? The VR setup from
I have the index now.
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, he used to have us over to just kind of like play with it, and those are always my favorite. Were just the basic Steam or Valve Lab games, where the bow and arrow one especially, I think is just so satisfying.
Do we do it?
Hey.
Kind of. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, I might need to move this over.
Oh. How's this gonna work?
Algo Morden doesn't die in Mass Effect 2. Tali dies in Mass Effect 2. Get it right.
Yeah, man, and it's so interesting. Going back to Mass Effect, we were talking internally about the challenge they gave themselves with the end of Mass Effect 2. You have to now make a third game that can both include every character from the second game or none of them. And somehow make it all work. And I think, for the insane challenge that was, they did a really good job. And I think it's really interesting in Mass Effect 3, if you don't have characters like Morden or Tali, your options change as far as what is possible as far as resolving major conflicts in the world. So it's another interesting way of the loss isn't just contained to one game. You actually lose options in the third game.
Yeah.
Based on your screw ups.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy and horrifying and amazing and beautiful that like you can just have an entire Mass Effect game where you don't get a certain character's story because that character is not alive for you anymore, or
Right.
has left you permanently or whatever. And I think that's so fascinating.
Yeah. I'm stuck in a closet right now.
I think you have to stay there.
All right. I'll be
Until I
that's
figure
fine.
this out.
I can hang out here.
Or maybe I have to. Okay.
I feel you. I really want to replay Portal, and unfortunately, I only have a PS4, a PS5, and a Mac, and I cannot play it on any of those right now. And I'm
But you
so
also
angry.
cannot say "unfortunately" in PS5
I
in the
know.
same sentence.
I was
The
about to
internet
say,
is
That's
coming to
true.
get
That's
you
true.
right now.
I
I'm
just
sorry,
realized
sweetheart.
as I was saying it, I was like,
Unfortunately.
I'm very privileged in that
Yeah.
way. For somebody who desperately wants to play Portal immediately, it is unfortunate because there is no option to play it on anything after PS3.
That is surprising, though.
Yeah, like they haven't. It's not compatible. It's not on PS Now. There's no PS4 version.
Well, donate to us on Patreon so that we can get Alex a gaming computer, so we can actually participate in what we're doing.
I basically am like the black sheep of this group because I don't have a PC master race around here.
All right. Hey, security camera.
Dances around like an
Only
I
has a
only
PS5.
have a PS5, guys. It's so sad.
That's what you look like.
Trisha says sad gamer problems. There you go. We can exchange my 10-year-old PC, which runs Portal. Perfectly.
Nah.
Did they come
Yeah,
out with
Alex, we can build you a Portal PC pretty easy.
Right. That's true.
Just
Probably-
for this one purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably run it like on your phone if it was able to,
Right.
or if the software existed.
Michael and White and I will just donate like the spare parts we have
There you
laying
go.
around.
Right. Just cobble together a PC.
True story.
I don't think we've talked about GLaDOS yet,
Mm.
and just that she's great. I think
I
is
mean,
kind of all I wanted to say.
The writing is just like so brilliant in these games.
Yeah. And Ellen McLean's performance, obviously, is
Yeah.
insane.
I think there's something so sorry, I'm just like hypnotized by this. I love that's one of the joys of Portal 2 is the infinite looping. This is
Right.
something that's so much fun about it. No, but I think the people at Valve are so genius in so many ways, but I think they took the classic AI tropes, the kind of how semi-sadistic, unnerving voice and made it their own. There's something about GLaDOS that is so it's a perfect blend of like the classic AI tropes, but something new and something even better and more fun. And there's something about her just like almost like on the surface vindictiveness that is just so satisfying,
Right.
as opposed to just all of it being kind of unnerving because she's a robot. It's like she's also just mean and just kind of a nasty person, which is but in the most like because it's coming through this AI somewhat even-handed vocalization. It strikes this perfect balance of all the AI tropes but extra juicy and mean and cruel and wonderful.
I mean,
And
it's also just with this like level of this layer of comedy. I just looked
Right.
up one of my favorite lines. She goes, "Well done. Here are the test results. You are a horrible person."
Yes.
I'm serious. That's what it says. A horrible person. We weren't even testing for that.
Well, and especially rewatching and editing the companion cube level for this video was so much fun because some of her best zingers I think are in that level. Just the way she screws with you and makes you feel horrible about killing the companion cube is so brilliant.
The other one I love, I'm gonna look it up, is when the whole thing about her parents, about Shell's parents, where she's like trying to get, she's like telling you like, oh, we have a surprise, it's gonna be your parents, da da da, and then she's like, oh, surprise, they don't love you, they whatever, and just like this just horrible digging that they do, and then she's like, I feel awful about that. Let's give your parents a call right now. And then it like rings and then you hear, the parents you are trying to reach do not love you. Goodbye. And then she goes, well, that was unexpected but impressive. Maybe they worked at the phone company. So it's like, yes, it's like these horrible things and just like this like absolute villainy, but in just the fun way where you don't
Goofy,
feel
yeah.
bad, right? Like it's just complete quirkiness. I love it.
Well,
Well,
and I
then
think
Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I was just gonna, part of I think why returning to at the beginning, I was talking about the first time I played Portal, and I think it had kind of just been advertised as like it's just a puzzle game, and they'd kind of shown off the mechanics of like you use portals, but the incorporation of GLaDOS and how she like evolves, like the
Right.
entire first game does such a good job of very slowly revealing how bizarre this world is, and yeah, the design of GLaDOS is obviously part of that.
No, but I think you're pointing something really great there, Michael. Is I think anytime an entertainment experience, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a game, already gives me what I wanted and then gives me so much more, it's some of my favorite experiences of entertainment. And the Portal games are a great example of I came here for the puzzle Portal fun, and what you gave me was actually a brilliant story world that is slowly revealed as you progress through these test chambers. And it's I love great sci-fi world building, and the world of Portal and Portal 2 is so rich, and there's so much, like especially in Portal 2, I was like reading over the recap and how you go into the deep history of Aperture Science and the Enrichment Center. You're in like different eras of it, like the deep levels of the center. It's so much more than you even bargained for, and it's brilliant. It's not like it's not a secondary thing. It's not like they put a one-dimensional story world around the puzzle game. They actually built a great, interesting, deep story world around the puzzle game. So it's just part of the Valve kind of above and beyond feeling.
Yeah, it would have been very easy for them to just have, especially in the first game, just say, there are 18 test chambers, 24, whatever there are, do them. And that's the game,
Right.
And even you could still even have like comedy writing, you can have like GLaDOS and stuff. But what it does is it peels back the story world, as you were starting to talk about, where like you only beat the first game by not completing like what GLaDOS is trying to get you complete, by ducking out of the chambers and doing your own thing. And then Portal 2 just like quadruples down on that now, where now you're in like the basement and the background and the warehouses, and you're sort of like pasting together puzzles yourself and trying to figure out. And then Wheatley is shoving test chambers together and like making his own test chambers on the fly, and it's just really fun. And then of course you're getting the J.K. Simmons, Cave Johnson backstory, and how sort of GLaDOS's origin story too, but not even in like a really, really heavy-handed way, just in enough of a way to kind of give you the clues you need to go like, okay, I kind of see how all these things came together. And yeah, it's been really fun over the course of 2 games to watch them sort of like deconstruct their own story world and let you literally see behind the scenes by having your character go behind the scenes.
Well, it reminds me of the movie Cabin in the Woods, where it's like, it begins just doing the normal horror tropes, and it becomes about the story world that would even make you be in a horror movie,
right?
And that's really what Portal is too. It's like, why are you in these test chambers doing this activity? You could just make a game where it's like, just take it or leave it, this is what you're doing. But they chose to make a game about a universe in which somebody is plausibly put into this strange scenario. Why are they there? What's actually happening? And ultimately what I love about it is it's like an AI story. It's a story about a rogue AI,
right.
which is so awesome.
Sorry, I'm pausing the gameplay for just a moment because our podcast editor needs access to our files to keep editing.
Okay.
Podcast.
Priorities.
Our podcast, Beyond the Screenplay, which I can now mention because Nicholas asked in chat, will we make a video about The Last of Us Part 2? I feel like the answer to that is maybe, but we did do a podcast discussion about The Last of Us Part 2 with Sage Hayden from Just Right, the YouTube channel, which was really cool. And I think cathartic, and I feel like it went to lots of different places, and we had room to talk about the things that we really liked, the things that we didn't like but respected. Like we kind of went on the whole journey there. So I recommend that you check out our Beyond the Screenplay episode on The Last of Us Part 2.
I really enjoyed that conversation. It was really, rewarding to
Yeah.
kind of get to just do it all, talk about it all. It's so much. There's so much discussion around that game, and it was nice to have that catharsis.
Okay. I'm back. Let's do this thing. How would you guys rate Wyatt and I's progression so far? Our teamwork.
I don't know. I've been trying to follow up what you're doing in this level, and it seems like there's a way that you both should be hitting those
Right.
buttons,
We're supposed
right?
to do it together.
Yeah.
Hold F for countdown. Oh.
Go with that.
Yeah.
FX, I totally agree with you about the Easter eggs in the first Portal. I love the room that you can find in the companion cube level, where you see, we talked about this in our video. It was a clever way to establish that it's not just you that maybe feels love for this cube. It's like a normal test subject experience to fall in love with this cube and to have feelings for it and not want to kill it at the end. And there's so many great graffiti kind of messages that hint at a history, and that you're not the first person to have done this. It's really brilliant environmental storytelling.
This is an intense level.
Floriat Visuals is asking which game is your guys' favorite between Portal and Portal 2.
Oh,
You
is
guys
that
have
the question, or is it just which?
Oh, that's what I was assuming.
Between Portal and Portal 2, like I think it just has to be the original Portal, just because that experience going in, having like zero expectations, and then having the constant reveal of the world is getting bigger and bigger, and this is just a test. This isn't just a puzzle game. There's the story and characters, and then you leave the test chamber, and now you're exploring, like there's like puzzles behind the puzzles. I feel like that progression, just in its purity, was really great for me. So even though Portal 2 is amazing and immaculate, I think Portal 1 is my favorite. But the question is, out of all games, what is our favorite game? Wyatt, what is your favorite game of all time?
Yeah, that's a really tough question.
Go.
There's so many types, but I think back in the day, playing Ultima Online was probably one of my favorite gaming experiences. But you can't recreate that experience now, so it's like in history,
Right.
it'll only ever exist in the past. What about you guys?
It's a very hard
I
question.
think my go-to, even though I'm like not even like thrilled with the answer, is Skyrim. And the reason I say I'm not thrilled is because like I think I'm actually more of a Fallout fan than an Elder Scrolls fan. But I feel like Skyrim is the game where I can most say that I just felt immersed for the longest and the most satisfyingest. In terms of just, it was like a couple months of my life where I was just like excited to get home from work and I was like doing like laundry lists in my mind, like remember to drop off the sword before you go to the cave, like on my way home.
Right.
And just the music and the world, just the visuals of the world and the actual gameplay and character building and stuff, and then the characters that I encountered. It's probably the best example of a game I can think of where I just felt completely in the world. And one of my favorite gaming memories ever is the first time I encountered a dragon out in the wild was on top of a mountain. And I had no business trying to fight a dragon yet, but I just ended up there, and I just started like on a mountaintop, there's a dragon circling, and I'm like running around, hiding behind rocks, waiting for like my magic to go back so I can get him a little bit and then run away. And I was like, this is freaking epic compared to a game like Uncharted or something where like everybody's going to get the same experience that's like been designed for them, and that can be awesome
Right.
too, obviously. But the fact that like I'm the only person who had this experience in this way at that time during my gameplay and that kind of thing was just so satisfying. So yeah, I'm not saying it's like far and away my favorite, but it's the one I always come back to is like what's just the most like joyful overall beginning to end experience I've had with a game.
Yes, Skyrim really is up there for me because of that reason. There was something about just wanting to be in that world and the magic of having those experiences where it's like I just came across this in a way that maybe nobody else ever has, and it's just so beautiful to experience that. For me, it's probably Mass Effect 2 because that was the game that just blew my mind as far as being this convergence of just cinematic storytelling, a sci-fi story world that I was super in love with, and the ability to have like a real impact on the direction of the story and characters and what happens in the end. So that just kind of changed my view of what games could be in a lot of ways, because I was always like a gamer second after kind of a film person, and Mass Effect 2 just really brought the two worlds into this like perfect combo where I was having a cinematic experience throughout, and yet it was like definitely an experience only possible through gaming. And how about you, Michael?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because like you said, Vite, there's so many different categories of games where like Mass Effect is great. Metal Gear Solid, the original Metal Gear Solid, I think like showed me what games could be. It was just so mind-blowing. But I also love playing Civilization for 12 hours a day when possible. And I feel like those are like on very different ends of the spectrum. So yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to answer. I'm gonna say Metal Gear Solid though, as far as like this is a game that like revealed what games could be to me. But I really love The Witcher 3 too. I don't know.
Yeah, I was kind of, my answer to this question is always like, here are the 6 different franchises I love, and then here are like the 2 games of each franchise. It's like I asked for 1 game, not 12 games.
I mean, it's like, what is your favorite movie? It's like It's like I like movies for different reasons.
Like how much time you have. Right.
Yeah.
What are your guys' favorite games though? That's
of all time.
Chat people,
because that might inspire me to change my answer. How do we get through here, Wyatt?
I don't know. Maybe
there's nothing inside there.
Maybe.
Right.
I didn't think so.
I do love the design of these 2 robots. Another just brilliant move. Just to have like the tall, skinny one and the short, round one. It's just so good.
I have an idea. Is this gonna
wait?
me?
Let me
Adam
out
D
first.
is also on the Skyrim
Nice.
train as far as favorite games.
Michael, let me out.
Wait, what? Oh.
Ocarina of Time, good answer.
Mm-hmm.
Mad Bad Coyote, good name. Double success right there.
I also really, it's a really old game. Vampire Bloodlines was a really popular like RPG back in the day, but that was the second in the Vampire series, and the first one, Vampire the Masquerade, was one of my I figured it out. Yeah. One of my favorites. It's one of those games that kind of plays like it was someone's D&D campaign that they have turned into a game. But like I just really enjoyed the story and the characters.
I have to point out Trisha from our podcast, Beyond the Screenplay, as her favorite game is the 8-bit computer game Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis.
I love
which
it.
is
Nice.
amazing.
Also Factorio, Long Dark, Outer Wilds.
Outer Wilds is
Outer
really up
Wilds
there
is
for
so
me.
great.
Witcher
Yeah,
3.
Outer Wilds, it reminds me of, kind of some of the feelings you were talking about with Skyrim, Brian. It just like there's just this specialness of this game is open enough that I'm having what feels like a completely unique experience that is kind of magic. It's not being just constructed for me specifically. It's just happening.
In Outer Wilds, since we're mentioning it, actually, never mind. I was going to transition to nothing. I'm not going to spoil what we're working on next. What do you guys?
I know. I was
up
going to
to?
ask. I was going to ask.
Ignore me.
It's funny how long I spend like trying to race past the stuff, and then I remember, oh yeah, I'm playing Portal. I just need to make a portal.
Make a portal. Yeah, smart. Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Divinity. Oh, also, okay, Trisha with again the deep cuts, the original GoldenEye.
Deep
It
cuts.
was
Oh
crazy.
yeah,
Not
N64
yeah,
GoldenEye.
deep cut maybe not, but like
Don't worry.
old school,
They're of no use
like
to anyone.
do kids these days even know?
This is just a thought experiment.
Slappers
RCP
only.
90 slappers only.
Golden Gun.
Proximity
If you
mines.
guys, I don't know if you guys have played the original GoldenEye recently. We should do that for our next live stream.
That would be
Uh,
amazing.
The gameplay is definitely old. Like my
yeah.
memory of how
Absolutely.
it works and how great it was.
Just even how
is-
it controlled was so different. from
Well, I
now.
recently tried to play the Wii remastered GoldenEye, where, as far as I could tell, I played it for 5 minutes and then threw it in the garbage. Like, as far as I could tell, the only way you can control is like by like using the Wiimotes to like move your character and stuff. So I think it's like you're steering with the thumbstick, but then you have to like point the Wiimote just to like move where your character is looking. And I was like, good God, there's no way I'm playing this game like this.
It's really unnerving sometimes to realize how much time has passed since we were young and playing games, and seeing like video of those games, like, oh my God, like I remember this feeling so cutting edge and so amazing, and now it looks so old. It's amazing. Like, just we take for granted the progress that we've seen with graphics and gameplay. It's beyond imagination where we are now, to our kid.
Well,
our
yeah,
kid
there's
brains.
also like the psychology of, am I like looking at this game expecting to see something realistic or not? You know, so you have the original, like the original Mario will always look good because it was never trying to do anything else, you know.
Right.
And then when you get into the sort of janky early aughts 3D games, you know, like Jade Empire or something like, or like Knights of the Old Republic, it's like, well, it doesn't look real, but also no one was really expecting it to. They're like, oh, I can actually explore a 3D space and this polygonal, you know, character
Right.
is talking to me, but I'm not expecting them to look like a person. It's fine because I'm still playing a video game. And then, you know, Naughty Dog comes along or whoever and is like, but what if
Right.
games looked completely real forever? And then you go back and play, you know, Knights of the Old Republic or Fallout New Vegas or something. And you're just like, oh, wow, like this looks so different now because of now what I expect to see in a video game. It doesn't, because it's not like we ever thought it was amazing at the
Yeah.
time. There are some games that you thought were amazing at the time that haven't aged well, but most of these games we never thought it was amazing. We thought it was fine, but we weren't expecting it to be something else. Now games have gotten to a place where now when you go back and look at those games, you're like, oh wow, this feels so different now.
Knights of the Old Republic is a great example because I do have a memory, because that was actually, you know, that was my first BioWare game and I loved it. You know, that game sold me on BioWare's approach to games, and I recently saw like just a screenshot from it or a video, and it was, you know, of a combat moment with multiple like Rancor beast things, and it looks so old, and I was like, wait a minute, this, in my imagination, this was like a Mass Effect game, but no, not at all.
Yeah, it is interesting how like our memory of the graphics can be so much greater than the actual thing,
Right.
which is kind of cool.
Because once again, like Brian was saying, we didn't expect anything more at the time, so it was like, oh, this is like good game
Right.
graphics.
It's interesting how there's a lot of like indie games being made now that their kind of mantra is like, we are creating the game how we remember playing it. So it's like it has modern graphics, like it's not actually as bad graphics as it was. There's like modern stuff, and so it's just kind of like a reminiscent of how you felt when you played those games. It's kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
there's a sense of like, if I play an old game on PC, I'm like, I want to mod it to fix some quality of life things, you know, like if I, you know, a container, I have to click on it to find out it was empty, whereas I could just install a mod that tells me it's empty or something like that. But it's like, I don't want to mod it so much where it looks like a modern game or something, because that's not what I'm interested in. I want to to experience the game that I love, you know. But that's always a back and forth conversation. I think is, do you want a game to look as like perfect as possible, or do you want a game to give you the nostalgia?
Wyatt and Michael are.
I love it.
The teamwork is breaking down.
Losing it.
It could
I
probably
I remembered this area, Michael, from when we played,
Really?
and
Oh, wow.
I remember this being a frustrating area, like
Oh.
losing my patience in this room.
Yeah. Are there audio cues that are helpful at all that are happening here?
Not really.
Okay. Because even like I can't hear when things are like triggered or like flying and boxes
Or
kind of-
clocks
right.
ticking down if it's a timed thing.
Can't remember what to do.
It would be fun to see. Sorry, I'm responding to Mad Bad Coyote. It'd be fun to see what would an interesting blend remake look like for an N64 game, where you try to capture the look and feel of N64 3D graphics and yet add like a level of polish to it, or is there a middle ground where it could feel like an artistic choice as opposed to quote unquote bad graphics?
Yeah,
Because there is like a charm to 3D Mario and stuff from that time that I have a nostalgia for, which I'd be curious to see like a semi-polished version of that still retains the look.
one of
Yeah,
the
they just released the
Sure.
the Mario trilogy with Mario 64, Sunshine, and shoot, I can't remember what the other one was, but the one that came out right after. The first Galaxy, and some of them was complaining about it, where they're like, Mario 64 looks old enough to be charming, and Mario Galaxy looks new enough to look good, but it's like just like Mario Sunshine looks like a bag of turds. Like it's just,
Interesting.
you should have done some actual remastering rather than calling it an HD trilogy. And I played it, and I don't agree. I think it looks fine actually, but just that sort of like basically that uncanny valley, or that uncanny, what's an opposite of a parabola? You know what I mean? Where it's like, if it's old enough, it's fine because you don't care. I guess that is uncanny. Yeah, it's the uncanny valley. If it's old enough, you don't care because you're not expecting it, and if it's new enough, then you're sort of satisfied. But then that middle ground where it's just like it doesn't look old enough to be charming or new enough to look good, and that can
Right.
frustrate people.
You guys definitely need to like stop that fan. You
Oh,
can't just-
yeah, that makes sense.
You
Oh,
can't
no.
jump through that fan.
See, I didn't even know the fan was like at play here.
Yeah, that's what I remember about this level. You have to like find a way to slow down the fan or stop it.
Okay. So you can probably hear the fan, so you understand when it's slower.
No, I can't hear the fan. I could just see it.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
we did it. Thanks, Alex. See what else we got here.
Ha! The non-gamer solved it for you.
Is it helpful if I do this to you?
I guess. Yeah.
Ow! Wow.
Yeah, do that.
Okay. Almost. There.
I hear some. Oh.
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 Oh. Turned off.
Yeah, try that again. Oh, that's a fan
Oh.
shut down. Oh.
Okay,
Oh,
so
you
is
did
it,
it.
like,
Yeah. So
it's
now
done
you can
done?
fly over, and then we're
Okay,
good.
how did I fly over?
Let me look.
It's far enough?
That guy. Hey.
Sweet. Okay.
Just bounced off the propeller.
How far are we into this?
I think you're pretty far. I feel like this look is in the latter
Are we
parts
really gonna
of
beat the whole thing?
I don't know.
Oh.
I feel like we're gonna get like.
There's definitely a crazy jumping thing at some point in this part of the universe where it's like both of you are like have to be doing an infinite loop jump at the same time and time it out. And yeah, I remember there was a part where Michael and I were like stuck for a while because it was so crazy.
Yeah. I feel like we even took a break for a while.
I think it was like that's why I remembered this area, because like we had to like stop. We were like, we can't keep going. So good luck.
Yeah.
What, like, do you know what level you're on?
I mean, we just finished the second chamber. thing,
Okay.
So there's like
All right,
8.
so we're still.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're
Okay, maybe not then.
we're ways away.
All test courses are available. You may redundantly solve the courses at
Yeah, like there's an hour 24-minute playthrough of it, but of course it's just people who I'm sure know exactly what they're doing. You can just like
Got it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, this is probably then a good place to wrap up. Oh, right, because there's these like late. Yeah, it's gonna get really complicated. That's so cool, though. I could have completely forgotten about these things. Cool, but yeah, we should probably wrap up. We have to go record a podcast also in a little bit, so we have to prep for that. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining for this live stream. We hope you enjoyed it. Sorry it wasn't public for the first half hour or whatever.
You can watch the replay of the public episode on Nebula.
It's true. Yeah. People that sign up for Nebula get early access to the videos. They get them the day before. And then also, get access to the replays of all the live streams. If you guys would mind sharing the video, liking the video, subscribing, you're probably subscribed, but in general, sharing the Portal video would be great. We hope you enjoyed the video. We are working on several more videos that we are excited about that will be coming in the near-ish future. We've gotten some really cool interviews that were really fun, and some other ones that are on the horizon that we're really excited about. So thank you guys for watching. Of course, if you would be down to support us on Patreon, that'd be great. A lot of work goes into all these videos, even the short little clean ones like the Portal one. But yeah, this was fun. Thank you guys for hanging out with us, and we will see you at the next release day live stream.
thanks everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Bye.